Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. If you are on YouTube, if you're watching this live on Facebook, welcome to my Facebook page. And tonight, this is a bit of an introduction to some upcoming courses I'm going to be teaching. Yoga. Restorative yoga is one of the options. And tonight we're going to do a little bit of preparation for those upcoming classes. I'm going to talk about propping, show you some of the props I have here in the room, as well as why I use them, why I've chosen these particular props. And also I want to talk about, and we're going to do some poses as well too. So you can go ahead, come down onto the floor, get into a comfortable position. And let's just go right into it. So I'm holding a blanket here. One of the essential props for yoga is a blanket. And there are so many things that you can do with a blanket other than cover yourself up to stay warm, which is a really important part of the restorative yoga practice. So I recommend when you're taking a restorative class that you have two blankets. One that you have, one or two that you're going to cover yourself up with to stay warm. Because if you are relaxing in a pose for an extended period of time, the body temperature does tend to drop. And you want to be warm. So you want to be in comfortable clothing. You don't have to be in yoga clothing, just comfortable clothing that you can move in and to be in, to be warm. So if it is in the summertime, you also want to be mindful that, remember that if you lie down, your body temperature will cool off, even if it is even if it's a really hot day. So the blanket here that I'm fussing with, what I want to show you is about making a blanket roll. And we use a blanket roll in several different positions, and we're going to practice one tonight. So let's go ahead and talk about making a blanket roll. I'm also quite far away from my computer, and I'm going to just check that I am on the chat. I will check in with the chat at the end of this evening. And if you have any questions or anything that you want to talk about when we're done, please feel free to post those. So with the blanket roll, what I like to do is to open up the blanket fully. And this is a blanket for a twin size bed. So I am 5 feet 7 inches tall. So this is probably about, I should have measured it for you. So 1, 2, I don't know, maybe 4 feet, not quite 4 feet across. So a small blanket. And I like to divide this blanket into thirds. Quarters is a little bit too small, and we're building a bolster that is going to go underneath the body. And when you make a blanket roll, this shape, it can be a little bit smaller than a standard cylindrical bolster. So this cylindrical bolster I have here works in a lot of different poses, but it is large, and it's way too large, too much of a back bend. It takes the body too far off the floor for most people. So that's where a blanket roll can substitute for a cylindrical bolster. And for this particular blanket, thirds works perfectly. And you want to roll it up as tight as possible so that when you lie on it, it is quite dense. And try to get the lumps out as you roll it up. It's kind of like Princess and the Pea, right? You want to make your props as comfortable as possible. All of the props I have here tonight are from Half Moon, shophalfmoon.ca, shophalfmoon.com. I have no affiliation with Half Moon. It's just been a really good company for me as far as delivery, quality of product, and so forth. I do have a few props from other companies, but I have just found this is a really reliable company to work with. So the blankets, everything you'll see here is from there, including this mat, but I have manduka and lots of other props as well too. So this is something that we will be using tonight. And then the second thing I want to talk about is a meditation cushion. And we're going to start in a seated posture and do a little bit of a neck stretch. This is my favorite meditation cushion. This one is in a kind of in a heart shape, the shape of a bottom. And it has inside of it has some buckwheat. And this particular one it's quite an interesting process to empty it and to wash the cover. But this is just an incredible substance to sit on. It adjusts, I don't know if you can hear it, but it adjusts to your position of your seat. It is neither too high nor too low. There are a lot of meditation cushions out there that are way too thick. I find they get your seat way too high off the floor. Now, if you are super inflexible, this is great because you want to get high up off the floor, and I'll just demonstrate. So that your hips are above your knees. And if I take my time coming down into this position where I have one heel in towards my groin and softening my hips side to side, the cushion that I'm sitting on raises up my hips, and then very slowly I'm going to work my knees down towards the floor. You can get cushions from your sofa. You could have other kinds of pillows to place underneath the parts of the body that do not contact the floor. So you may like to use more blanket rolls, get some throw pillows from your sofa, whatever you need. The whole idea with restorative yoga is that there are no parts of the body suspended above the floor. Now, I was talking about some meditation cushions are too high. If I were in let's suppose my knees were up here. So my knees were up here. I would need to get my hips a little bit higher. And in that case, I would need to build something so my hips could go higher. And I have posted some photos from time to time with students with lots and lots of blocks, because they're coming to yoga class for the first time with they need a tremendous amount of support. And so the more inflexible you are, the wider selection of props that you need to have. And that could be a whole bunch of different cushions from your house. It could be that when you start out a restorative yoga program, that you actually purchase 6 yoga blocks so that you have lots of flexibility with how you're sitting. And so now my hips are really high. I am on 2 yoga blocks, and I'm gonna do this. Let's go this way. I'm going to turn the yoga blocks this way. These ones are cork blocks. They're really nice for vinyas, for a more active class. They're quite hard actually to sit this way. Let's go with the softer cork with the foam blocks. There we go. So now I'm sitting on 2 blocks, and my knees now are resting on a block in the second highest position. And that way I'm able to get my hips above my knees. Right? So if I take off one, if I go down to the floor, I hope you understand what I'm saying. This is pretty fundamental to yoga. So most people, when they sit down in a cross-legged position, their knees are up here. We want to get the knees down and the hips up. So it's only a matter of raising up the hips and then getting the knees down, working the knees down towards the floor. Ideally, they touch the floor. If they don't touch the floor, then you simply place something underneath them so nothing is hanging. And the idea with that is that we are better able to let go. And so the groin muscles in this case are not creating tension in the body. We want the groin muscles to relax, the inner thighs to relax, the adductors to relax, so that we can move into this position. And over time, the knees go lower and lower, and we feel more comfortable as this part of the body begins to open up. And so, as you know, in the slower yoga practices, we do a lot of different seated postures. And eventually, we want to be able to sit for an extended period of time. And so having a variety of props so that you can get your hips up, your knees down is really helpful. Okay. The other reason that I love this particular cushion is that it also works as a weight. And I can use this cushion in lots of different postures to create heaviness, weight on the body. And if you've gone shopping for yoga props, you know you can also buy weights. And it's not necessary if you have something like this, because this can be resting on a hip or a thigh, and I will show you that later. We'll get to some postures in just a moment. Bolsters. You can buy rectangular bolsters, cylindrical bolsters, small rectangular bolsters, small cylindrical bolsters. And for me, this has been the most versatile shape of bolster. This one here is a little bit squashed. This one has been used for quite some time. And you can kind of re-squash it by using it in the opposite direction, because they're quite dense and they last for a long time. At the rectangular bolsters, I do use them, but not as frequently as the cylindrical bolsters. So I find a cylindrical bolster is way more versatile. And if you have gone through my 40 days of restorative yoga, which I will link in the description box below, and I'll put a card above later, and I'll also put in the comments on Facebook, you'll see that I use this a lot in different restorative yoga postures. This one can simply be used, what I was saying, to raise the hips up. You can just sit on it in straddle position if this is comfortable for you, either a wide-legged straddle or a narrow straddle. So again, hips up, knees down. And then when you're in supine posture, lying down on the floor, it can support lots of different body shapes. So yoga blocks. Cork, I prefer for a more active flow style class. They are really solid and heavy. And so when you're in a triangle posture or something like that, they feel like they're not going to move out of the way. But for restorative yoga, these foam blocks work really well. Also over here, so these are complete bonus. These are also filled with that buckwheat material. These are small cylindrical bolsters. You could just use throw pillows. And sometimes I do grab some of the throw pillows from my sofa, and I'll show you a demo of that. Maybe we'll do a half frog later, and I'll show you how I use that. And then also here, this small little foam cushion, which at that particular shop comes unwrapped as well as wrapped, is a really nice, it's nice to have a little bit of height underneath your seat. Now, you don't have to have this. You could simply sit on your blanket roll, or you could fold a blanket. So instead of purchasing something like this, you would simply have another blanket prepared just to, again, raise up the hips a little bit. So we come into lots of postures, especially forward folds. So for example, in a straddle, we want to have the hips up so that the pelvic tilt naturally goes forward. So the sit bones are going back, and we are coming forward. And if I was down on directly on the floor, this would not be as anatomically beneficial. So raising up the hips in seated forward folds is really a great idea. So either preparing another blanket to have that ready, or to have a small cushion like this really, really is helpful. So I hope this helps. I hope this is useful for you, because I find that when I'm working online with a lot of students, they don't have yoga props at home. And it really is a worthwhile investment perhaps to buy 2 yoga blocks and a bolster. And then the rest you can create things from your blankets at home. Either, if you're going to buy a meditation cushion, but that's not necessary either. You can sit on a yoga block, or you can create something from cushions at home for sure. So we're going to start with the blanket roll, which is one of my favorite restorative poses. And you can either use a blanket roll or a smaller bolster. So we're going to come down onto the floor with the blanket roll and place the blanket roll underneath the shoulder blades. So this is also referred to as the energetic heart space. I'm going to lie down, scoot my seat forward, place my shoulder blades on top of the blanket roll. And if your spine is tight, this is going to feel amazing. You may also, for some of you that are not comfortable leaning the head back, might need a little something underneath your head. And never stay in a posture. If your ponytail is in the way or something like that, make sure you remove that out of the way. And this should feel really nice in opening up the chest. Good idea if your low back is tired, if you've had a busy day, to walk the feet wide on the mat. Rest the knees together before you extend your legs. Excuse me. Arms can be wide, palms ideally open to the ceiling. And just take a few moments for the back to settle onto the blanket, which is quite dense. It is firm, it's hard. It might not hit you in the right places. My shoulder blades are directly on top of the blanket. Take some deep breaths into the chest. And if you are ready to extend your legs, you can go ahead and extend your legs. And the legs can be completely relaxed on the floor. And again, if this is too much for your low back, bring the soles of the feet to the mat, walk the knees wide, and just walk the feet wide and allow the knees to rest together. And so we'll just stay here for a few minutes and allow the chest to begin to open. Close your eyes. Take your breath into the chest, your awareness of breath into the chest. Be fully aware of the rib cage, the front of the rib cage. Feel the pressure on the back of the rib cage as you breathe. And begin to deepen the breath in the chest. If your tendency, for those of you that know what I'm talking about, is to go to an ujjayi breath, soften your throat and take the inner gaze, take the inner awareness to the rise and the fall of the chest. And remember, if your low back is fatigued, just to bring the soles of the feet to the mat, and that should help with your low back. And again, for those of you that didn't hear me at the beginning, I will check in with the comments towards the end, and we can have a little bit of a chat. So welcome to those of you that are just joining us now. Come right down onto your back. And if you just prefer to lie in Shavasana because you don't have a blanket roll, just do that. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what's underneath my head and why I am removing it. So with the chest opening here, I'm focusing on the breath in the chest. We also have another opportunity here to create an opening in the front of the throat, which is energetically really important as well too. And when I do that, I've realized I need to go a little bit higher. There we go. And by opening up the front of the throat, I'm opening up a whole other line of energy. Come back to the awareness of the breath in the chest if your mind is wandering. And feel the expansion of the rib cage as you breathe in. And the softness as you breathe out. And then take 11 more conscious breaths here. Counting forwards or backwards. If your arms are spread wide, bring them in closer to the body. If your legs are extended, bend your knees. And we're simply going to raise the hips, roll to a side, remove the blanket, come down on to your back, and come into either Shavasana or half Shavasana with the knees bent and the knees resting together. And just allow the back body to integrate. Depending on how tight your back is, this integration will feel, for some of you, it might feel quite drastic. For others, it'll be just a sweet settling down onto the floor. The integration is as important as the posture itself. So never shortchange yourself on that. Now this supine posture with the blanket roll has 3 parts. We're going to just do 2 of those parts tonight. And you do have an option of doing the 3 parts and then a longer integration. It's really nice if it's the end of the day just to take your time, and you could do each part with an integration, and that might just be your restorative yoga practice for the night. So the other part we're going to do tonight, so take your blanket roll and place it underneath your hips. So bring the feet in quite close, and then very gently raise the hips up off the mat and place the blanket roll underneath the hips, resting down. So my sacrum is a little bit below the blanket roll. Just gonna find a sweet spot here. Can tell when you extend your legs. And then I'm going to extend my legs so that hips, the pelvis is raised up off the floor and the pelvis is moving in this direction. And then now it's really important with the shoulders and the shoulder blades, you want to press away from the floor, tuck the shoulder blades under a little bit, and then open the arms. And this is a really beautiful way to bring some softness into the front of the hip flexors, the whole front side of the pelvis, the hips. If this is too extreme with the legs extended, you can do this in 2 parts, starting with the knees bent and the soles of the feet. So maybe the legs are a little further out. You just want to be careful you're not creating tension in the hips. And then when you feel ready, go ahead and extend the legs. You may need to, from time to time, just adjust the upper back again. The back of my head is on the floor, the backs of my hands. And this is a deep opening for the front side of the body. So just breathe gently. And if this causes anxiety, do your best to slow the breath. The idea with this practice is to lower anxiety, not increase it. And if this is causing any stress or stirring up a fight or flight reaction, then you want to bend your knees and bring the soles of the feet to the floor, raise your hips up, remove the blanket, and come down directly onto your back. If other body parts are starting to talk to you, just take a deep breath into that part and out of that part. Invite it to let go. And just be curious about how different lines of energy are connected throughout the body. And you may wish to roll over later and just write some of these observations down in a yoga journal. Let's go for 11 slow breaths. Check your ankles and your feet are soft. Guide your arms closer to the body. Bend the knees. Gently, slowly, there's no rush. Soles of the feet to the mat. Place your hands on the blanket roll. Raise the hips up, just enough to remove the blanket. And then slowly, upper back, mid back, lowering down. You can extend your legs. You can walk the feet wide, rest the knees together. You could also alternatively bring the soles of the feet together. Allow the knees to rest to the outside. This is really nice for the low back integration. And because we are in a restorative yoga class, you want to have blocks handy perhaps and place them underneath your knees. 3 big breaths here. Especially if you are staying for an extended period of time. So now we'll transition to fetal position. So guide the knees together. Roll over to a side. And just rest on your side in a fetal position just for a moment. Take a few deep breaths. And then when you feel ready, you can come up to your seat. Okay. How was that? Pretty simple, right? But it can be highly transformative if you integrate a restorative practice into your day or a few times a week, even if it's just one posture before you go to bed. So I have reached for a large sofa cushion. And this is one of the things, and it doesn't have to be this big by any means. We're going to do that half frog shape. And it's really nice if you have something to place underneath your knee. And a lot of people have knee sensitivity. Sometimes in this posture, a cushion like this might be too big. So I'll show you where we're going. Lots of things in the way here. And some of you actually, I know a lot of people that actually sleep like this or move in this way different times during the night. Now, if something like this is too high, you might like to just take your blanket roll and then you could have your blanket roll into something that's not quite as extreme as this cushion. And this is what I was talking about for raising your seat up off the floor at the beginning of the class instead of purchasing something like this. Come down onto your belly. Come onto your forearms. Just gently move side to side. My toes are tucked just for ease of transition into the posture. What we're going to do is draw the right leg up. So you can roll a little bit over to the right, bend the right knee, and bring the right leg up as high as you feel comfortable. And then transition the pelvis back onto the floor. So if possible, you want to have the front of the left hip onto the floor. Now, can you see how my right foot is down here? This is very different than having the cushion underneath the foot as well too. So if I move this down a little bit more and place my whole foot and leg on the cushion, it's a different experience. So then I'm going to walk the pelvis forward and down onto the floor, and then simply rest down onto the floor. And if this is not comfortable, you can, of course, try this without the cushion at all. And you might like to have something underneath you here to lie on. So you might want to have some kind of a pillow here. And what we're doing here is stretching into the groin. We're also getting a stretch across the back of the hips as well too. And if you are on a hard floor, being here for a while, there might be some kind of a discomfort underneath the knee. And it doesn't matter whether your knee is folded in or out. Right, so this is called half frog. Full frog, of course, is where you're doing this both legs at the same time, which is not a gentle posture until you work into it. So I'm going to grab that blanket. It's really nice to have something underneath the knee. So one of the things that I recommend, I will be posting the different restorative series very soon, is that in preparation for the classes, you start to gather blankets, cushions, pillows, props. And the more the knee is raised off the floor, the deeper the stretch in the groin. Find your breath. And it's always a good thing in a restorative class to find your letting go mantra. So for some people, that can be simply just the word let go. So you can inhale the word let and exhale the word go. Or there may be some other word that resonates with you, such as soften. Or kindness, or something that's going to help you release the tension. This would be a beautiful posture once you've practiced it a little bit, to take the weighted meditation cushion and place it on the back of the right hip, creating a bit of weight. And with the weight of that cushion also comes some comfort and protection and safety and grounding. And so in-person yoga classes, I often, especially in restorative, hopping around a lot, moving blankets and creating blanket weights for students. And even just to cover up the back with a blanket here is going to feel soothing. Take 11 deep, slow breaths. Roll a little bit onto your left hip. Bring the right arm down. Slowly guide the right leg back. Come over onto your torso, straight onto your front. Stack your hands and just rest your head on the back of your hands. You can rock your hips side to side. Allow the heels to rest to the outside and the toes together. Just take a couple of breaths here. And then bringing your tops of your feet back to the floor. Press away from the floor, come back up to your forearms. And what we do to one side, we must do on the other side. So go ahead and raise the left knee up. If you're going to raise the knee above the level of the floor, grab your blanket or your pillow. You can roll a little bit over onto the right hip. Raise the left leg up. And then place your cushion underneath your knee. Now, when you get that knee up, come up to your forearms and adjust the pelvis. You want to have the pelvis, if possible, a little more square with the floor. And this side, the left groin muscles may feel completely different than the right. So really take your time. And then when you feel ready, you can place a pillow underneath your upper body or simply come down and rest on your hands. Relax the right foot. Relax the left ankle and the left foot. Listen to the sound of your own breath. And come back to your words of kindness, your words of letting go. And continue to soften with each exhale breath. And if you do have something to weight the left hip and that feels safe and comforting to do so, you can place something on the back of the left hip.
And remember not to let the ego be a part of this. If you've brought your knee too high and it's too much, too intense, lower the knee a little bit. And then come back to nice, slow, deep breaths. And if you're not feeling anything, that's what the raised cushion or blanket can help with. Take 11 slow breaths. And if you feel complete, go ahead and begin to very gently raise up the upper body. Guide the left leg back. For a few breaths, just come straight down onto your front. Rock the hips side to side. Bring the toes together. Allow the heels to rest to the outside. And just give yourself a few breaths of integration in the center. And then very slowly, you can make your way onto your back. If you do have a cylindrical bolster, you can grab your cylindrical bolster or a large-ish cushion. Come down onto your back. Guide your knees into your chest and gently rock side to side. That's my dog behind the screen. I do record these videos in my living room, so it's an abundance of family noises in the background. So thank you for your understanding. And then transition to circles. So place your hands on your knees and very slowly inhale and exhale as you circle and rotate the knees. We will go in both directions, so take your time. Let's go one more this way. And then inhale and exhale. Circling the knees, massaging the low back. This is really important to massage the low back in the restorative practice. Massaging the kidney area, the adrenals. Make sure that you are hydrated. If you started this evening not hydrated, to go make yourself a nice warm cup of clear tea. And start the process of rehydrating your body, which is critical to your wellness. Okay. Take your bolster over to the right side of your mat, and I will hop around and show you what this looks like from both sides. the joys of having long curly hair. Move to the center of your mat. And we're going to do a very simple supine twist tonight. Heel toe your feet wide on the mat. Have your hand near your bolster. And then raise your hips up off the floor as if you were going into a bridge posture. Shift your hips a little bit to the left and then put them down. The feet stay wide on the mat. 2 or 3 toes of both feet are off the mat. Now I'm going to allow my knees to move to the right and open my arms wide. If your knees do not touch the floor, you can support them with a bolster. And I'm going to place this cylindrical bolster between my legs, so it's underneath the left knee. My arms are open wide. And take some deep breaths into the outside of the left leg, the left hip. And you can heel toe the right foot a little bit more out of the way if your bolster is somehow impeding the stretch. And then in supine twists, we need to talk about the upper body as well too. So if for some reason your shoulder blades, both of them, are not on the floor, bring your arms in, fingertips up to the ceiling, press into the backs of the arms, raise the upper back up just a little bit and shift a little bit to the right. See if you can even out the upper back and then spread your arms wide again. The gaze is either to the ceiling or to the left, the opposite direction of the knees. And I said I was going to switch, but I think you can see me well enough. And you'll see the other side. Close your eyes and let go. Maybe you can hear that's my dog snoring in the background. Or breathing deeply. If any part of the body is overly stressed, start by deepening your breath into that part of the body. Make micro adjustments mindfully. Be mindful of your neck, so your gaze can be up to the ceiling or to the left. If you're practicing on your own, it's a good idea to set a timer and make sure you do the same amount of time for the left side as the right side. Check in with your jaw. Part your teeth slightly. Maybe open your mouth, move your jaw side to side, soften your tongue, and then relax your mouth. 11 breaths. Bring your arms closer to the body. If you are in a really sweet spot, please stay where you are and listen to your own inner wisdom. And then you can guide the knees up. Remember, we did switch the hips, so your hips are not going to be in the center of the mat when the knees come up. Raise the hips up, come back to the midline. You can move the bolster out of the way. If you're comfortable extending your legs, go ahead, extend your legs for a couple of breaths. And just notice the difference between the left and the right hand. Observe the effects of the practice. And then in preparation for the other side, switch your blanket, your bolster, your cushion over to the left side of your mat. Bring the soles of the feet back up to the mat. Raise the hips up off the floor. Shift your hips to the right. Put them down. This time the knees will go to the left and the arms will go wide. Again, the cushion bolster can go between the legs. And you can rest the right knee onto the bolster. Shoulder blades. So this is important. So your right shoulder blade may be off the floor a little bit. Bring your arms in. Pick up the upper back. Shift a little bit to the left. And see if that helps with bringing both shoulder blades closer to the floor. Bring micro adjustments to your ankles, your feet. Completely soften and let go. This time the gaze is to the ceiling or to the right arm, depending on how your body's feeling. You can scan your body from the crown of the head to the feet, just checking in with where you may be creating tension instead of releasing tension. Exhale and let go. If your mind tends to wander, focus on your breath. You can count the inhales and the exhales, or just simply come to a mantra such as inhaling the word let and exhaling the word go. Take a really big inhale breath. Nice long exhale breath. And then count 11 more breath cycles, softening and deepening with each cycle. And again, if you feel shortchanged on this side, stay on this side for as long as you need. Otherwise, guide your arms in. You can remove the cushion. Keep it back down there nice and low because it's going to go underneath the knees if you have one. Shift your hips back to the center of the mat. And then slide the bolster or the cushion underneath the backs of your knees. Even out your upper back, bring the shoulder blades together and come into Shavasana. And then reach for your blanket and cover yourself up. Feeling your whole body from the crown of the head to the tips of the toes. Scan the body. If your hips don't feel quite balanced, take a moment to adjust them. If your legs are close together, just separate your legs a little further apart. Allow the ankles to be soft. The toes can rest to the outside. If your arms are close to your body, move them a little further away. Open the hands toward the ceiling. And let go. This is our final posture for tonight. And after a few moments, I will come up and I will chat for a bit to close. I encourage you to stay on your back. Stay exactly as you are. If for some reason you need to begin your transition, I'm just going to guide you out of the Shavasana. You can bend your knees. Bring your knees into your chest. Rock side to side. When you feel ready, you can just roll to a side. Pause on your side just for a moment. Few breaths. And then when you feel ready, you can come up to your seat. So thank you. Thank you for joining me tonight. And whenever you are watching this video, know that you can leave questions and comments below. I will be posting links to the upcoming restorative yoga classes, and there will be offered in series 4. So you'll be signing up for 4 classes, and then you'll have a choice to renew for 4 more classes. And I'm going to be recording all of the classes. So if you register for 4 classes, there'll be 4 different videos that you can continue to watch over and over and over again. All right. So thank you. Thank you very much for joining me. Namaste, and stay well. And let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much. Good night.